room, from the management side, we have Ray Furbus, your finance manager, myself, Jacob Waddle, the general manager. We have Alex, your supervisor, your director of service areas, and Elise, your service areas admin. You have Charles, your board liaison on the call. 3 of the 4 committee members, 2 in the room and 1 online. We don't have any audience today. What we're going to be doing to get through, so this meeting is primarily to go over your draft budget of 2026, to make sure that we hear all questions from all committee members. I'm going to have Ray do a full overview of the entire budget. And then after that, I'm going to take all questions at once. And then once I get those, we're going to answer those questions. We'll cut the dialogue from question and answers about 15 minutes from the end of the meeting, which will be about 10:30, 10:40 time. So we can catalog any requests of the committee of changes they'd like to take to the board that may differ from management's recommendations. So we'll be taking a proposed budget to the board, and then also cataloging any recommendations of changes that the committee would like the board to be aware of. Share my screen and pass it to Ray.
Okay. So as you must be aware by now, let's start at the bottom, right? So for 2026, let me make a note here. We did do the scenarios. Like I have 2 separate scenarios for you where we adjust the reserve. So you can see like a lower percentage increase, but the one that we're going to be reviewing is our actual proposal, but we're going to be showing you the other 2 scenarios as well. So for the main proposal for 2026, we're proposing to have a monthly assessment of $371.97. That represents a $61.55 increase, or a 19.8% increase from 2025. So there are several drivers for this increase. Let's go to the operating side. So on the landscape contract, I know that the first time that we went over budget, you guys had a question about the agreement, right? The amount that we were paying on 2025 are a bit higher on occasions. Okay, so for 2025, the reason is that we have 2 landscaping agreements. One runs the entire year and one runs for 7 months. And the issue was when the budget for 2025 was put together, that agreement that runs for 7 months was prorated to 12 months, which was a mistake on our part. That's why it's understated, the budget, and that's why on the actual you see a little bit higher, because we should have had 7 months of that agreement and then added an additional 5 months of that same agreement to total the 12 months together. So that makes sense. So that's why for 2026, you're seeing the actual amount, which is going to be $71,952. That's what we have per both agreements. That's what we should be paying for 2026.
Welcome, Esther. Just to go over, Ray is going to do a full overview of the budget. Then we're going to take questions from the full committee and then answer those questions, and then build a list of any recommendations the committee has for the board towards the end of the meeting.
Could you just quickly go over for Esther about the percentage and the actual, because I think she missed that part.
Yeah, I'll do that. Can you hear me good, Esther?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, so I was just saying that we do have 2 other scenarios. We're adjusting the reserve allocation so that you guys can see 3 scenarios with 3 different percentages for next year. But we're going to go over the main proposal that we have right now, and then we'll discuss the other 2. Right now for 2026, we're proposing a monthly assessment of $371.97, which is a $61.55 over what you guys are paying for 2025, or a 19.8% increase. I was explaining that the first time that we review or went over the budget proposal, the previous draft had, there was a question regarding the landscape contract. Why are we seeing actuals higher than what we have in budget? I was explaining that we currently have 2 contracts One runs for 12-month period, the other one runs for 7-month period. So when the 2025 budget was put together, the assumption was that that agreement, instead of using 7 months, we used 12 months, and that understated the budget number. That's why you're seeing actuals a little bit higher coming in now. So when you go to the 2026 budget number, that's the correct number, $71,952 for next year.
And just to clarify, just so that I don't interrupt, if we have line item questions, like for example, right there on the contract that you just described, do we wait till the end to ask those questions, or can we ask as you're walking through it?
Yes, we're gonna walk through the whole budget, and then at the end, we're gonna take all the questions in, and then we're gonna go and address all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then I know, there was another question regarding the assessments. To that money.
Is this about the irrigation project, you mean the assessment, or, oh, no, separate, my mistake, okay,
No, it's just 3 additional units are
Oh,
being due
gotcha.
to Carl, yeah. We might need to reimburse that money, and that's gonna be up to July, it's gonna be $6,500, but we're still looking into it, and once we have a conclusion to it, then we'll let you guys know.
Okay.
Okay, so then, moving on to the landscape, not in contract line, we're leaving that line flat to with this basically, up to June, you guys have spent $8,000 on this line already. And if the run rate continues to the end of 2025, we'll end at $16,000. So, we decided to go with $10,000, hoping that we don't, spend the total amount. Then we added a new line. This was not in your previous budget. This is regarding tree trimming, not in contract as well. There was a change in the CCDD policy in terms of tree trimming that we can go over more details later on. But this is the reason why we're adding this line, and we're adding $30 per door unit so that we can address tree trimming that are affecting the actual buildings. Then we have the irrigation repair line. We added a placeholder here for any potential irrigation repairs. So far up to June, you guys haven't spent anything. We're adding this just in case for 2026, but definitely this is a line that might be an opportunity for you guys if you want to recommend for us to lower this number. Then we have water. We're basically leaving water flat to 2025 and 2024. We have seen a slight increase on the actuals for this year. We're hoping that trend doesn't continue, and even though we're forecasting using the same run rate, we're forecasting that we could end up at $16,000. Still, we're hoping that that's not the case, and we're budgeting for 2026 the same amount that we've been budgeting for the past 2 years. We have for electricity.
No worries.
No worries there. Okay. But yeah, electricity, we have $500, basically flat with what we have for 2025. Gutter repairs is the same story. We're using a placeholder of $600, very similar to what we had in 2024, a little bit higher to what we have in 2025. Currently, you guys have spent $200. Possibly you won't use the full 520, but still we're adding a cushion there just in case it's needed. For roof repairs, we have seen several roof repairs bills coming in for this year. Currently, up to June 30th, you have spending close to $3,000 on roof repairs. That's why we're using the same projected number that we have to end the 2025. We're using that same number for 2026, which is $5,900. Then to end the operating side, we decided to split the spring pressure washer and the full pressure washer to keep track of both of them separately. What we're doing here is because we're not sure if we're going to continue using the same vendor for next year. We're just assuming a 5% increase based on the numbers that we're getting, that we're expecting or that already happened for this year. That's going to be the case for spring pressure washing. Full pressure washing is going to both be a 5% increase. Gutter cleaning, we're also assuming a 5% increase compared to the actual cost that we're expecting for this year as well. And to finalize the termite bond, we are adding $6,431, which is an 8% increase from the number from 2025. Now, here, the 2020, let me explain this. So the 2024 invoice that we got for the termite bond was slightly higher because they provided additional services. That's why for 2025, they're seeing here $8,000. So the last year invoice, the period started on April 1st and it ended on March 31st of this year. So we were amortizing that expense for 12 months. It was like $1,000 amortization that we had to do. So that's why you're seeing $8,000 here, because you have $3,000 from January to March for this year, and then you have the new invoice that came in a little bit lower, and that's taking us to the $8,000. But for next year, we should have the same number of the invoice that we received for this year.
Okay.
So that's why we have a slightly lower number there, but 6,431. That's the estimate. Moving on to administration, we're adding $100 here for people that would like to request coupon books to submit payments. Adding a placeholder of $132, which is $2 per door. For the budget mailings, this includes the stamps, the envelopes, and all of that. We have engineering, professional fees, and legal fees. We added money to all of these lines. We added $2,200 for engineering. These are for inspections and when the bills are going to be turned over to the association. $1,000 for professional fees and $1,000 for legal fees, which is basically the same thing. So basically $2,000 there for potential inquiries that you might have or that we might have in regards to the new construction project. Then one of the main drivers of the increase for all the service areas is going to be the CROA admin fee. For this year, all service areas are seeing a 26.7% increase in this line. This is a pass-through from CROA. As you guys know, CJC and CROA pay 100% of our compensation. So they're doing a pass-through to the service area for the service that we provide to you guys as well. This is the number that we came up to this point. And then to finalize, we have the reserve fund allocation. For the reserve study, the recommended allocation for next year should be $153,000. In this case, because we're capped up 20% increase, we're suggesting $122,000 with $122,000 with $500 for this year, which is 20% lower than the recommendation from the reserve study plan. Now, if you guys, we can go over real quick the other scenarios.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, I kept flat all the numbers from operating and administration. We just adjusted the reserve fund allocation, which you're gonna see here if you scroll down a little bit. So we have the second scenario we're doing. Instead of $122,000, we're doing $12,000, and that would represent an increase of 15.7%. If we lower 10,000 grants from the reserve fund allocation, that would be a 15.7% instead of 19.8%. And if we do $102,000, that would be 11.5% from 19.8%. The only issue with this is that, as you guys are aware, for the reserve study plan, they're expecting for Highland Village to have a starting fund for 2026 of $587,000. Currently, you guys have a big deficit, and you might end up the year with just a balance of $107,000, which is a deficit of almost. That's why we're proposing a higher reserve contribution, but as you know, it's a little bit complicated with the new phases, the new construction that we have, and also that all of those units start paying dues to CROA. So this is going to be the same situation that we have seen up to this point. So now we can take questions if we want.
So I'm
Can
gonna-
you go to the budget and go line item by line item so that we're not jumping around? If I could suggest that, you can go back to your budget.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
And then
just
we
switch
can-
this around here so I can start taking notes as well, though.
And if you can show that online as well.
Yes. Okay, can you see it?
Yes. So I don't know if somebody has a question. I have a question on the first one, the landscape contract, the 71,000. I did the math, that's for 66 units. And let me know if that's incorrect. So is that 71,000 for 66 units only? And the reason I ask is because I would think that there's an expectation in 2026 that the additional 6 units that are yet to be turned over would be turned over at some point in 26. So there would be services provided to them and a cost associated with that. Want to make sure it's in the budget.
Taking all the question from that group.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I think that would be almost with all of the budget items.
Yeah.
It would be.
Have to account for the
You have to
additional
account for the
turnover.
additional, that would have to be included in every budget item because of them coming on.
Yeah.
If they come on, it's gonna.
So this is a good item that we'll probably take that into account. I'm gonna loop back with Lauren and Tanner to see where we are with that, because what it's probably gonna look like is we will most likely be presenting a budget that's going to have very similar lines across the board. However, instead of units at 66, it'll be units at 70, expecting those 4 to turn over. Now that's also going to increase your dues by 4, but we're going to see the expenditures increasing in relation to that.
Okay. In the same context, I don't know if there's any expectation. I know it's been slow for phase 1, but is there any expectation of phase 2A having any townhomes turned over to the association?
Within
And
the
so
first
they
year.
Uh,
Next
this-
year.
Yeah,
In
to this
20
point, not to our knowledge. However, it's also just dependent on how long the turnover process is, as we've seen, this one has been going on for 13 months. We expect the future ones to go faster. But in that same sense, it's kind of one of those, they come hand in hand. With turnover comes additional expenses, especially regarding landscaping and irrigation, but it also brings up more dues as well to help.
The engineering would be higher too, wouldn't it?
The engineering is, like we said, we have a placeholder for that. Your engineering professionals and legal are set higher overall than what
Okay.
we've set most associations at, anticipating
Because of
those spends, yeah. And that's where it's kind of, we look at all of those, well, it's 2,000 for engineering, 1,000 for legal, 1,000 for professional. We know that we can use those as a lump for in whatever we need in those manner.
Okay.
We would just kind of stick, and we would expect that. I think, and we shared this in the board meeting with the newly sat teams in Mattamy during this turnover. They're seeing what our expectations are and exactly what we're looking for with this unit that we're just about to turn over. So we should see a cleaner process, which would mean less time from the engineer spent on the project. And we're charged to bill it by billable hours, not a flat rate for the turnovers. So it should see that it shouldn't be a
And
growth.
hopefully a less impact on the landscaping as well, because they're doing a better job on it.
Okay,
Okay, the next one is that I have, please interrupt me if you have something in between. The next one is for irrigation repairs. So we had a budget of 1,250 for this year, for 25. To date, we have not used that. I'm trying to understand why we're increasing that by $1,000 more for 26. Just understand the reasoning.
two-part on that. One, you'll notice a few of these operational expense lines. And I mean, your operation overall is seeing a fair increase from last year to this year. One of those is that's part in due to what we see as a low operating balance that you're sitting at. So we wanted to make sure overall we budgeted a little conservatively. We didn't want to budget aggressively in the sense of if we under budgeted some lines or there was an unexpected expense, that you could take the hit out of your operating fund. As your operating fund doesn't have any cushion available to it, we wanted to ensure that there's some room in there for some cushion. Knowing that we're doing some large irrigation work, that's a line that it's unforeseeable what our expenses on that are. Knowing that the irrigation project most likely would entail fixing most of that, and that's why Ray even shared that this is an option where the committee can share and put saying, no, we want to reduce that line. And we would likely just make that, and we wouldn't, challenge it too hard, because it is a fair line that we can reduce. And there's, the fight to say, if we're redoing the irrigation, we shouldn't see irrigation repairs next year. But anytime there's large projects, the same with a house or anything, you just see those little trickle costs after the fact. It's something that we would still want to budget at least to the same level. And Exquisite is very good at not over, at running a lower irrigation repair line than we've seen with other landscape providers. So that does have a good buffer there. I know if you were with another, with some other landscape companies that we're using, we see much higher irrigation repairs. So and I know that this committee was potentially entertaining RFPs on changing out your landscaper. To keep that as an option, we wanted to make sure we well budgeted that line, because we know that line, there's so much unforeseeable on there, which is why we put it at what it is. But if the committee wants to lower that, there is option to do so. I, will say we are going to take all the committee recommendations. There's a few items in here in the operating expenses, especially, that we can shave, we can trim, we can cut them down. The unfortunate thing I'm going to say is whatever we shave off, we're going to be recommending that difference be placed into your reserves, as your reserves is under, and we're not able to reach the recommended balance of contribution this year. So we can do that. However, if it's the idea is to do that to lower the percentage, our recommendation is going to keep the percentage in that 19% range. And any funds that we're not spending in the operating is to reallocate those to reserves.
Okay.
Just a little.
Yeah, and just a notation, if we do end up needing to reimburse the $6,500 that we have collected from these additional 3 units, your current balance up to today and your operating fund is going to be $18,169, $149, I'm sorry. That will drop. If we have to reimburse that money, that will drop this to under $12,000. And just reserve allocation, the current reserve allocation that you guys are doing is $8,000. So we will have just like a bandwidth of $3,000, $4,000 to cover any additional operating expenses that we might see in the month. Right. Yeah, it's good to have a buffer in operating just in case.
Next question is, this is super quick. The gutter cleaning, I think that you stated it was a 5% increase, but I see it lower than 2025, if I'm reading that correctly, for the gutter cleaning.
We're basing that off a 5% increase off of the rates we received this year on billing in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not questioning the 5%. I'm saying that your budget for 26 seems to be lower than the budget for 25, even though there's supposed to be an increase. It used to be 4680 and it's now 4505. So just pointing that out, that it went down instead of up.
Yes, yeah, you received some competitive responses back on the gutter cleaning this year, where we were able to see a bit of savings on that line across associations.
Yeah, for 2025, we budgeted for 4,680, and the estimated actual cost that we're expecting for the year is going to be 4,290. So for 2026, we added the 5% on top of what we're actually expecting for this year, which is going to be the 4,290.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, the next one, pressure washing, that's a bigger one. Trying to understand how we went from 10,000 to 18,000 plus. So actually we went from 10,000 budgeted in 2025 to, and we're not there, year to date is 3,000. We know we have the big pressure washing coming, but how did it double and more than double? It went from 10,000 budgeted for 25 to 21,000.
So similar to what you're seeing this year with the gutter cleaning, as the following year's numbers were based off of the contract that was selected last year. is how we received that $10,816 pressure washing line. And that $10,000 was the collective between the two, the fall and spring. This year, like Ray mentioned, we're going to start splitting these out so we can start understanding the difference in the cost between the two. And so your community can as well. The issue is on all the responses that we received back this year for the fall pressure washing, they were all higher than what we had seen in past years. The recommendation, we received four.
Central painting.
Four back?
Yes.
Okay, we received 4 bids back. Central painting was by far the lowest, overall around 59,000, 60,000, thank you. 60,000 overall for all of the projects, or for all the service areas.
And
That was higher, that was over budget for a fair amount of service areas. The second cheapest was about 80,000, and then 2 were about 300,000 to do a full complete job based off of the RFP
That
that we
was-
sent out.
Phases of it,
That was
the spring and the fall.
That was just the fall
Just
numbers this year is coming in that. Now, again, we revised the RFP based off of the feedback we've received. It has much clearer scope, and I think that allowed for clearer numbers. I know this is, pressure washing is one that many years, ongoing, we've not seen the satisfaction level that the service area has been asking.
True.
And I think by us revising it to try to meet the satisfaction level, it's brought in higher numbers. But that's, so that's why you were seeing an increase on that line next year. Is
Yeah,
that
I
just-
think that one definitely has to be looked at very closely. I mean, $20,000 for pressure washing versus the 10,000. I don't think it was that bad. But anyway, that's just something for the committee to discuss.
No, that's a good note. Is it just, we want to make sure you want to make sure that that project's monitored closely as it's one of your largest expense of the year.
And if it needs to be done. I mean, for a year, maybe you could go without it for 1 year or something.
There is,
That's a
Or at
possibility.
least
I don't
maybe
know.
not the spring cleaning.
Yeah,
there is an option. Anytime that is, however, that goes against the contractual obligations of the service area. If you skip one of these cycles, if a homeowner then receives a violation, it's on the homeowner until, actually, any pressure washing is on the homeowner between cycles as it currently stands. Luckily, we don't see a lot of violations go out because of the spring flats washing and the fall full washing. Even if, when we've started to ask inspectors to curve it slightly, where they work closer with us, if they go out to an inspect a zone and they see a fair amount of maybe sidewalks, to check with our service area team first before issuing anything to see, hey, when are they up for a cycle? Is it in the next 45 days? Okay, if it is, then we're gonna hold off because we know you're acting to remedy this situation.
So too, when we went on the walk, several people had moss growing on their sidewalks, but that was explained to us as predominantly the cause of the irrigation issue that we're having.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those, it's an option, and it would be a committee recommendation that the board would have to then approve. And then, but then in that sense, if anyone gets a violation, the candid messaging is
Your service area.
your service area has paused this to readjust funding elsewhere. And unfortunately, that does mean this responsibility is on you this side, or for now.
or if the other part of that would be not to do that full power washing,
Mhm.
do two of the similar ones.
Yes.
Spring type, so that the front is taken care of and all of this, all of those minor things that you don't need the whole building power washed. That, that might be something it would at least, could lower the cost in that manner, because you're really not needing the full building to be power
But
washed.
then we would fall into the same situation as the green on the sidewalks
No,
and the
no, no,
homeowner
but
would
if
be
you're doing,
responsible.
if you're doing 2 of the smaller ones, you do the one, the flats.
Yeah, so you're not touching the facades.
You're
but
not
only,
touching the sides of the building, you're doing all of the concrete, the porch, that type of thing.
But-
You're not doing the outer kind of thing. And because of our trees not being fully grown and giving off some of the things that would
But the
be.
power washing includes doing the soffits and all that as
full
well.
pressure washing. Mhm.
A lot of people-
But I think that this is something that we can talk offline, right? We want to
Yeah,
dive into
yeah.
this.
I mean, I'm
This
just,
would be-
it would
I
just.
just wanna-
No, this is great dialogue, and this is something that, this is why you have a committee, is to help make these types of larger
course.
decisions. of these, but just, I always want to be candid when it comes to some of these contractual obligations, that if you choose to remove these, it can bring some heat back to the
There's
committee.
ramifications.
Because one, that if they start to receive violations, it puts management in a spot where say, we would love to, but we can't to provide that service based off of how we've,
No,
adjusted funds and things.
That increase that you're talking about is for 26. It's not expected for the 25 power wash that yet has to be done. Is that correct? Because then
No,
we'll be
this
waiting.
blue number here is the expected pressure or cost for this year's pressure washing.
So it is expected to be 17,000?
Hmm.
Okay, so we really have to look at that right away because we've already spent 3,000 and we only had 10,000 budgeted for this year. So it's not just about next year and the fact that it's twice as much, it's gonna hit us in the negative this year already. So we definitely need to look at that, the committee to look at this. All right, for the roof repairs, question for you, you have 3,000 projected. So far, the roof repairs year to date were 3,000. You have another 3,000 projected for, is it July through December? So for the remainder of the year? Well, actually,
Yeah,
this paying forward, because you already know whether we have anything else that's hit in July, August. What is that for? Again, I'm sorry, the roof repair, we know it's not for storms. So what is it for?
These are the actuals. Anything in the projection is just the double. Since this was a 6-month, these are just
Yeah.
double. I don't actually expect us to need to be spending $5,900 this year. I think we've hit most of the store. I mean, unless it becomes something else, something else large comes
Huge
up.
hurricane hits or something.
Yeah, these ones, I know, the cost so far, I think that's 3 separate tickets, 3 to 4.
We received another one, another 2 right in this past month, so it hasn't hit.
Okay. So there's a few more expenses coming in on the roof repair, yeah. And I know that's one, I saw Esther, your comment there. Can we just get this sent over to them with a justification of what each one is?
Sure.
So we don't use now on that, to send over all of those to the committee.
Just so that you understand, Jacob, the reason why we're asking is we just want to understand, are some of these repairs due to they're just normal wear and tear to be expected? Or is it due to some storm fix-up that we did? Or is it due to just Mattamy not doing a good job on those particular units? Which could mean a different type of follow-up for those things, right? So we're just trying to understand really. We know the root cause is the soffit had to be repaired, but why?
Understand. Okay, thank you for that.
Sure. The next one is on the termite bond. I do, if possible, because it's quite detailed to get into. I did the analysis on the, how do you call this? What was due from an inspection installation, which was paid through March. But then there was the annual monitoring that would not be calendar year, January to December. It's March through March of the following year. I'm just curious. I think we're under what we need if we only say we're going to budget 6,400. Just to clarify a question for me, you said year 3. Is year 3 expected to finish in 26?
yeah,
Okay, because year 1 started in 24. Year 2 would be now in 25 through 26. And year
Yeah.
3 would be 26 through 27.
just for 3 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Because it will be, the year 3 starts on April 1st.
Yeah,
Okay, I'd like to,
six.
yeah. Can we get into detail on that one a little bit later? I don't want to take up any, we can all the committee be part of it, but I really like to understand that and make sure. And then what happens after year 3? So if the contract is only for 3 years, we have to continue it, which means we have to sign a new contract. How much is that going to be? And we need to have that baked into the 26 budget.
Into
So
the
this is the-
27 budget.
27, yes,
I'm sorry?
That'll be baked into your 2027 budget.
yeah.
Okay, so you're saying.
Because
the
remember-
20 Go ahead.
Yeah, because the invoice that we got for 2025, it started amortizing on April. So that's gonna run from April 1st to March of next year. Then on April of next year, we're gonna start the last renewal portion of the agreement that we have for 3 years, and that's gonna run from April of next year to March of 2027. And then from April of 2027, that's when we'll need to have a new number for the new agreement and new one that we're gonna go with.
Perfect, perfect. I think you're under with the 6,000, so if you don't mind, if I can share what I have and just tell me what calculation I'm doing wrong, but I feel we're under with the 6,400. I just want to make sure we're not then going over budget later.
Yep.
Okay, the next one is the water and wastewater. So we know we had a huge spike. I know you're basing it on 25, but we already know we had an issue. So we have to figure out really to be able to say whether that 26 forecast is valid or not. We have to understand what caused the spike. Is the cost and spike just specific to that month? Is it an irrigation issue? Is it rate increases? All that has to be taken into account because that's going to blow us out of the water already for 25. So wouldn't want to make the same mistake for 26. So I'm just calling that. I think we need to do a good root cause analysis on that before we accept what the 26 forecast would be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Your concern is that if we're in track to what we're spending this year, our forecasted budget is too low, but also just to understand why we're over this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, both. We want to
Okay.
understand why we're over, and then do we need to take that into consideration for next year? We can't just stay flat or similar to this year or something like that's going to happen again because we're just going to be under again.
Okay.
So it's good to
It'd be really
understand
helpful
that.
to know what the usage is. If we have the usage numbers, like by month, I mean, some trend analysis would be helpful to kind of see. Because we've had like, hotter than normal summers and things like that now, so I don't know if that's contributing.
Also,
Yeah.
are wondering
Go
a bit
ahead.
more of the irrigation issues?
We are, but I mean, we can provide you the usage numbers.
Well, if you provide the bills, you did that last time. We had like almost a year and a half worth of the bills, and that has exactly what the usage was, what the rate was, and what the actual numbers were, so that we can compare things. We can do analysis ourselves on that.
Okay,
To
we
see
can
if
do
it's-
that.
Yeah, what was it? Was it the rate? Was there a home that was tagged to our bill by mistake? All those kind of things. We'd
Yeah.
like to do some analysis, so the full bills would really be helpful. And then
So-
also, I don't know, Jacob, if this is possible, but we'd like to compare if there are rate increases and stuff like that to non-IV townhome as well. So is it possible to get bills for other areas that we can do some kind of comparison?
Yes, I'm just trying to think what we can provide that's apples to apples. Would it be helpful to see the trend, the year-over-year trends of other service areas instead of the full budgeted numbers on water bill? I mean, I can get you one, I think that's relatively close in numbers. How about we look into that? Seeing one that's relatively close in numbers on their annual water bills and giving a couple of those bill copies to them.
Yeah. If you think that that'll help, something that's the easiest for you, but that will help us with the spike that we had in 23, Q4. Lauren had said that the research that was done was that it went up in all of Celebration. So we just like,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm looking for something that shows me if it has gone up in other areas, that it shows me how much it's gone up in other areas. Again, just for our analysis. The next one is the engineering. You have 2,200. So just out of curiosity, I forget the number. How much is it per building for that engineering?
It's a flat hourly rate. So there's not an exact number. It's just based on how many hours the engineer has to spend on or out at that property, how many times they have to come back out to do a reassessment of it. I think they've done 2 to 3 on this building. And now they're getting the final list that they're just gonna review one more time, but they're not coming on site. That's why I'm not sure yet, and this one is a bit of an anomaly too, I think, because it's been a bit larger.
Usual situation.
So basically you've spent for the one building turnover about $2,000 this year on that. We don't expect it to go to 4, but this one building's been about $2,000. That's where we're saying we have fair hopes that next year, if we have more buildings turn over and they're the new buildings, that they're not going to need to spend $2,000 worth of billable hours per building. We expect that number to be reduced significantly.
And this is based on how many buildings are you estimating?
We can't foresee that at the moment. If anything, it's just what's in phase 2B that's been built out, which may be 3 buildings, as one's probably staying a sales center.
Okay,
And that's where,
And
if
then-
it is the 3 buildings, that's why there's the buffer and the legal and professionals as well. That I'm hoping we don't need to use for legal and professionals, and we can continue as a buffer for engineering.
okay. Almost at the end, so sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
CROA,
That's what this is for.
thank you. The CROA admin fee, I think you explained it, it went a little bit fast for me. Did you say
It was
CDCP used to pay for some of this? Or
So
CROA?
a real high level, I do want to keep close on time. We have a few more minutes available, but there is another meeting starting at 11. So we can, I'm going over this very high level. Let me stop sharing and share here. So this administrative fee overall is, if the service area is paid for a management company, there'd be a whole lots of lines, management fees and all that. Those are all collected and everything is, holistically part of CROA and CJC. And it's just a pass-through $1 amount to cover all service areas time spent. When Grand Manor stepped in, we've taken a number that we were given from previous budgets and usually inflated that by 4% year after year. And that's given the service area fees. The total lump number is then divided out by the total amount of units, and that's what gives each service area that fee. It's a flat rate per door, basically. Because of a study we were doing with Canoa regarding the CJC cost-sharing agreement, we were doing some time analysis of staffing spent. We took that as an opportunity to do that for service areas as well. So that way, if we were asked, which we were asked last year, why is this fee going up and what makes this fee? I don't know if I'm getting the value out of our administrative fee. So we did the similar practice to what we did with Canoa. And by that, we took relative staff that works on service areas overall. So this is all 14 associations, and did staff time based on what they spend only on service areas in general. And that came up with these percentages. Those percentages, has 5% executive director, 20% of the general manager's time, 100% of the time of your service area staff. And then, it goes on to 3%, 5% of IT, 20% of raise time is spent doing that. And that's doing your monthly financials and all of those different pieces there. Resident services manager, handle the pieces of the water bills and electric bills is also handled by the resident service manager, as well as any issues or any billable items, resident service handles for those. That came up with a flat compensation number of about $305,000. When we took it down to a level that we were doing with Canoa, that we, take into consideration contractual benefits, burden rates, an increase rate, office space rental fee that Canoa does get charged even for the staff that supports Canoa, a CJC insurance portion, IT networking, and then the cost of the auditor. All of those additional costs were kind of decided as, well, let's not even look at those. Let's not even look at those. Let CROA carry the burden of all the additional costs. But based off of time spent of the staff that CROA has on site, that came up with a number of 305,000, where last year it was 219,000. The purpose of this study was not to get a number, was not to increase that rate. This staff here, it doesn't make a difference whether that's $0, $500,000, 219 or 305. It's a straight pass through from CROA on that number. And so that's where this came through. And what you're seeing there is at a $269,000 contribution for the service area fee. The finance committee, and with the board's review of the finance committee, has decided to go to that 305,000 in a 2-year step. So you're going to see an increase on that line this year, and you're most likely see an increase on that line next year, with then leveling out.
Rather than a bigger chunk initially.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's for all service areas.
That's for all service areas. Your bill is only based off of the amount of doors, and it's the same dollar amount across the board. So that number only gets bigger and smaller based on the amount of doors in the service area. So with that, as we get towards the end of our time here, are there anything, looking at the main budget, that the committee is not in agreement with management's direction? They want to provide a different note to the board saying, hey, management says we're putting money here and we don't.
You're asking us if, wait, I'm sorry. You're asking us if we're approving right now this? I'm sorry.
In a sense, are there any of these numbers on the operations, in more specifically,
That we're in disagreement.
Yes.
that you're in disagreement with? Now,
Yes.
knowing that we're gonna look into the,
Pressure
Addition.
washing.
Well, and also the addition of the other townhomes into this budget.
yeah, we're gonna look into adjusting this overall to reflect 70, which is gonna trickle some of these numbers and adjustments, but it's not gonna be,
It's not substantial.
major changes. Is there any, substantial items that the committee's just not in line with, saying?
I can only speak for myself. I'm not in line with the pressure washing, not in line with how water and wastewater is being calculated, and the units being brought into all the calculations. Those three for now. That's my perspective.
Does the pressure washing, can you repeat the other two?
The one.
The pressure
Oh.
washing, the water bill, and how that really, I really feel that we need to understand that root cause before we say this is our good budget for 26.
Agreed.
And then, like we mentioned, 70, is it 72? 6 more units, right? Or can't remember. 4 or 6?
70, yeah, it's 4 units in that building.
They only have 4. Okay.
I will say, I'm pretty sure, Ray, that we are going to be suggesting a budget at 70 units.
Good.
And you're gonna see an adjustment on the landscaping line based off of that. I don't expect a lot more adjustments on those lot. We'll look through line by line, but it's not gonna see a large trickle up. I mean, irrigation, like I said, you're gonna see some increases.
The whole, or more addition to the termite might also have,
Yeah.
increase or whatever.
Yeah, because they
Right.
need a whole new installation, so to speak.
Yeah, because.
What we might see then is just whatever that percent would be, let's say it's a 3%, no, it's more than that, like 6%. If 4 units is 6% of your overall, we might just see a 6% on all of those go up, but it shouldn't adjust in much because your dues are coming in as well. But we'll,
And 4 units for the termite shouldn't be overwhelmingly
But
costly.
it would be just reflected, it would be better to see it reflected in the budget as well.
Yeah, what we can do is just take the current cost that we have, divide that by the 66 units, and then take that cost per unit and apply that to 4 additional units, and that's gonna be our.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you want a little bit more than that. So the 4 units are going to have their installation done. And that was more money, right? So it's not just the service that's being provided. It's also the installation of the units of the termite. Thing.
Yes, which is what I just said.
So,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay. Sorry. I can't hear you.
It's okay.
I couldn't hear you. Yeah. So it's both the installation and the service that has to be considered. For the quick question for the tree, sorry, I skipped that tree that you say is not in contract with the landscape. Where's that going to come out of? Is that the landscape general, or I know that you
So
have it as a
that
separate
line,
line.
what it is we're seeing a lot of service area, and this one we reduced it substantially for this service area, and it can even drop lower if we wanted to. But what we're seeing is the difference between a tree trimming because they need more light coming through for the grass, or the trees are getting mature, or even a tree needs to be replaced. I know we have a tree that this committee is discussing. It's a small one, but it still is nonetheless a tree that's a committee's looking at discussing getting replaced. We're seeing a lot of these tree-related items wiping out that landscape not in contract line, which is really meant to be used for a plant that died here or there, or any, thing caught off guard. So what we were looking at this year is adding a line. Basically, it's still landscaping not in contract, but it's specifically calling out to if it's related to trees. We're doing this because you're seeing in other associations, we're keeping that number closer to $95 a door, not $30 a door. We cut that down by 2/3 because your service area has much smaller trees. So you're not going to need to spend,
Money on it.
$10,000 doing an arbor trimming to let the lights shine through. But at anything that requires a large tree install is, starts out about $1,000 or higher. So when we did that $30 at around 1,900 is what that came out to be. Whenever we get to this point next year, if we haven't used that money and if your budget's looking in a case where I know we're probably gonna, you could always use the money in landscaping right now, especially if this project
Oh,
is
gosh,
successful.
yeah.
Then you can even look at using that $1,900 in landscaping, not in contract, and making that basically $1,200, or not using it and using it.
Shifting it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a line there for, I'm gonna say it's more for future planning, with next year just being a first step, getting your toes wet on it.
It's good. And just to be clear, just for my clarification, the trees used to be taken care of by CCDD, and now they will not, now they are owned.
The
By the
easement
owner?
trees?
So
Yes.
all the trees in the easement, you could basically say CDD used to trim all sides of them. So if they were starting to grow close to a house, they're gonna come and trim it on that side. Now they're only trimming roadway clearance. Now, when we did your walkthrough, walking down a sidewalk, anything below 8.5 feet is inside your landscaping contract. You're not gonna see billing for that. So if it's a branch is hanging down to the sidewalk, that's getting trimmed at no cost.
An
That's in your
easement.
contract, yes. This is anything above that or any tree replacement or any, other item tree related.
So tree replacement is still then, or it becomes our responsibility?
In an easement, it's still CDD.
Okay, good.
Yeah, good. Crowa Parks, it is transitioned now, it's the responsibility of Crowa, but service areas, luckily, those are staying part of CDD. To the best of our knowledge.
At the moment.
I don't expect that to change. Okay,
Thank
any
you so much.
final words from this committee?
I'm good.
No, does the committee want, I know sidebarring here completely, discussions on RFP. Did you want any management's help in facilitating booking a meeting? Just reach out to us if you do. I don't know if that's something that you're wanting to discuss sideline or with us. We're happy to engage. Just let us know as soon as you can. This week's tough with all of these meetings, but we'll do the best we can to meet. It may mean that there's a meeting that needs to take place, even just with Alex and potentially Christian. Just if it's a time sensitive, you want to get it done this week. I don't want my calendar to hinder
I think,
anything.
speaking for us, I think the sooner the better.
Okay.
I mean, I know that both of Esther and Chris both work full time.
Okay, yeah, so
It's more
Esther,
difficult.
you're gonna share your availability, shoot that through, and we'll see if we can get some staff together to meet with you on that. I'm just going to say I might not be able to, but I don't want that to delay the progress.
Good.
And
That's
real
good to
quick
hear.
question, do you have a response on the easement from CCDD on the follow-up that we have asked for you to reach out to them?
I did. They said, no, they do not want to be a part of it in any matter. We should have a conversation with them about that. Okay, well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
for
much.
your time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.